What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Run Your Mouth podcast. Merry Christmas. I know a lot of you guys are celebrating today, so we won't have as many people up in the live chat enjoying us live, but not my holiday. I just wrapped up stealing cookies from the homeless, so, let's get an episode out. There's no excuses for not working. If you're a Jew on Christmas, you gotta clock those hours. These are the days when the Jews shine. No one else is showing up to the office. You're like, you know what? Everything's quiet. It's all peaceful outside. Why not go scream at the internet while everyone else is taking a break? I'm off the cookies. It's not easy. When you're home alone on the holidays and you don't want to drink, cookies were a good time. I needed a new addiction for 2026. If anyone has a suggestion for new narcotics, because I think I'm already at like the max for coffee and Zins that you can do. Adderall makes me a little too angry, even though I do mix it in when you got to put together dates or other things, or when you're editing. Which, by the way, for all the people that either just listen to this podcast or like it on Spotify or on Twitter and do not currently follow the Robbie the Fire YouTube channel, please, right now, go like, subscribe, do whatever you do on YouTube. I just put out the first episode of Porching. Took a lot of work. Think it's real funny. You guys can see Fast Heart Martin in action if you only heard this song and don't know what the fellow looks like. He's a cool dude. Did it with Brian McWilliams from the Lions of Liberty podcast, filmed by Kat. Anyways, go check that out. And episode 2 will probably be out next week on Monday or Tuesday. But I'm off the cookies. It's got out of hand. This past Sunday, I think I got back from travel, and that's usually when I really go ham. And I had like 3 donuts and like 6 cookies over the course of the day, and I was like, all right, we're done. But I did go to the doctor for the first time in about a decade. I got blood work done. Found out that I both don't have diabetes, and I also don't have any STDs. And then you're like, not only did I not need to go here, but I almost feel like I was better off not having that information and thinking that I was dying, which forces you to be a little bit more careful. But anyways, I totally good health. Saw the dentist too. No cavities. I'm killing the game right now. If anything, I finally did the responsible thing and saw medical healthcare professionals that confirmed that I'm doing everything right in life and that there's no reason to make any changes to my diet or other habits because all the things I've been panicked about were only in my brain, and I'm actually a perfectly fine, healthy specimen of a 37-year-old man. So maybe this is the wrong year to be quitting cookies. Maybe you got to wait for the bad diagnosis, then you're really actually motivated to do so. Anyways, that's enough cookie talk. How were all you guys doing for Christmas? Did you get the gifts you were hoping for Santa? Did he show up? Did you get a nice moment? Did he still run down the stairs in your pajamas? Did you open up the gift wrapping and see everything that you were looking for? All right, let's see who's hanging out in the chat. We got Runaway Slav. What slop will you be eating today, Jew? Stir fry puppy foreskins? No, I don't think. I don't really think I'd be particularly in. I don't even like stir fry as it is. I'm not into Asian food. I don't trust the Asians, and I don't like fried food. So no Chinese food for me. That's the level of Judaism that I'm at. Is shaved head and don't eat Chinese food. You got to try and do what you can to walk away from your heritage and live like more of a common goy, which is what I'm trying to do here. We've got Philogay with up, hurrah, and someone else saying sup, Robbie. All right, let's get into some news topics. Like I said, we don't like to dilly-dally too much at the top of the show. If you live out in Jersey, we'll be doing New Year's with Sam Tripoli, and that's it. Nothing else to talk about. Let's get into the news, and let's start with this story, everybody, because this one disappeared fast. Oddly enough, I was by Brown when this shooting happened. I was like a couple blocks away. I showed up to the Red Door Bar, because I had performed there before, and lucky for me, with all the porching I've done, if I ever have to go off the grid, I guess they'll probably find me pretty quickly because the leads would be all the porches in the different villages, but I feel like I got a good Fight Club operation going that I can roll into any town, and I've got some resources of people that I've porched with, and people that porch together stay together, and we were early. I went to see Goose. Sadly, I had that disaster with the hotel room, and I've discovered that I have no interest in going to a concert if I'm sober. I basically drink 3 Red Bulls, get a headache, and decide to leave after the first 30 minutes of the show. I think I already told that story about the hotel room that I showed up a day late for, and so they wouldn't give me the room that I'd already paid for. Anyways, I already took a stance that I think it's a fair compromise in society, that we're welcoming to minorities, but that gay men and black women are not allowed to work hotel counters together because it's too much sass. You're not gonna beat them. It's like rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Jew complaining versus gay white man and black lady, you're not winning. You're going to lose that one every single time. They will just steal your money and mock you to your face, and there'll be nothing that you can do about it. Anyways, I knocked on the guy's door, for safe refuge, and it was locked because apparently the shooting was going on right then and there. And so we had a round of beers at the bar, and then we walked over. Anyways, point I'm trying to get at is that story disappeared from the news pretty fast. I don't know if you guys follow the news story, but, the initial reporting was that they had no leads, no good cameras, that the murder of the individuals at Brown and that apparently super smart professor at MIT were unrelated. They both took place pretty shortly together, but the initial reporting was no leads, unrelated. But then, oh my God, talk about a turn of events. A homeless guy saw something suspicious, and now the guy's dead. He was definitely working alone. He definitely did both of them. We don't know why he engaged in these activities, but in order to sort out this problem, we're going to work on having less migrants in the country. And listen, because it's a weird story going from absolutely no leads to a homeless guy living in a basement who miraculously muck-cracked the case and used his schizophrenia, and he was able to use his receiver of... how many times do you think that guy has reported to police things that were absolutely not true? The basement dweller of MIT who managed to go onto Reddit and then post about the fact that he saw something suspicious, and then they had a lead in a rental car, and then they just found the guy dead, and we're like, yep, case closed. We've got this one all figured out. But, if we can learn anything from this incident, it's that colleges need more homeless people living in their basements. That's what we need. It's like a Goodwill Hunting story. The janitor might be the smartest guy there, and the homeless guy illegally living in the basement of the school might be the best at muckracking who is killing your students. So if you can learn one thing, the Charlie Kirk thing, we might not have as many questions if there was just a homeless guy who was living in the basement. And shame on that university on not having an interest in transparency and keeping their students safe by not allowing homeless people to live in the basement who could later be consulted. I don't know. How many crimes do you think we could, if instead of engaging in mass surveillance, we just invested in more homeless people who we allowed to live in our basement, who have nothing to do, and so they can really keep tabs on all the particulars of everyone's daily routines and behavior, and then figure out the case. Listen, I don't know what conspiracies they have on this one. You guys spend more time on Twitter listening to podcasts like this. Maybe Candace has done 45 episodes on it already, that it was actually the same Mossad shooter who took out Charlie Kirk. I don't know the storylines. This one was once again, a little bit weird, going from we know nothing, and these are separate incidents, to, the guy's dead, the case is 100% solved. It sounds to me like it's not solved. It sounds like you have a suspect. That's what it sounds like. Anyways, I went to Twitter, because, I was like, when they were deeming this as case solved, I was thinking, this sounds more like you got a suspect. What actual evidence did they have to even link the guys? And so here's what they came up with. Physical evidence at the scene. When his body was found, he had a satchel with 2 firearms. Ballistics testing is ongoing, but expected to link them. That might be changed because I put this together Saturday and was unable to do an episode. He was wearing the same clothes seen in post-MIT shooting footage. That's convenient. Immigrants, sometimes they're dirty and they don't change clothes. So even a couple days later, when he decided to kill himself, he was still wearing the same outfit to make it nice and easy for the cops to link him. Seen in post-MIT shooting footage, and other items tied directly to the crime. Storage unit records, financial and rental records confirmed he had leased the unit where he was found. Law enforcement, including Providence Police, FBI, and Rhode Island, Massachusetts authorities, stated they are certain he acted alone. And how are you certain that he acted alone? How did you go from these 2 incidences are unlinked and the guy's dead, so we weren't able to interview him, we don't have a confession, but we're certain that he acted alone? How is that a certainty? If you're working off a random tip off a homeless guy, how can you be 100% certain that this guy acted alone? Anyways, he's the perpetrator of both incidents, closing the case with his death. No motive has been publicly detailed yet he had prior connections to Brown and the MIT victim from studies in Portugal. And now this is from the New York Times. Also read this and thought it was suspect. And this is very difficult to read without putting my face right to the camera. Can you guys see it more clearly than I can? All right, let's give it a try. The day after the post was made, the writer approached the authorities. He told them he had encountered a suspicious man in the Brown building where the shooting occurred. I really have to fix, producer man's got to fix the other computer setup so I can more easily read articles. Anyways, you guys can read this. They tracked the plates, rental agreements off a suspect tip. And so are the cops retracting that they were unrelated when they had initially said that? Or, once you get a dead body, you're like, we can just sweep this thing under the rug. Good enough. Got a dead body here. Everyone happy just blaming it? And does Israel have any new statements about Iranian involvement? I mean, because they were starting, wasn't that a storyline that Israel was starting to claim that Iranian involvement was starting to take out innocent civilians and MIT professors? Was there a new statement? Is Israel contradicting is not a word, but let's just go with it. Is Israel contradicting the statements of our law enforcement agencies that are saying that this one dead guy is everything? Listen, guys, I don't even know what the conspiracy is here. I can't tell you who did this thing. I can just tell you that going from we have no idea what happened to, look, a homeless guy gave us a tip and now there's a dead body. So you think they had a meeting? They're like, hey, we got any other unsolved murders that we can just sweep under the rug with this one? All right, enough of that topic. Episode brought to you by YoKratom.com. Only place in the entire world where you can get an entire kilo of kratom for just $60. Let's take some comments here. Edward Snowman. Be the patsy for a Saudi gun running scheme. You'll get a whole floor to yourself. Is that true? Is that true that the guy who was at Brown was involved in some Saudi gun running scheme and now he gets to just live in the basement of Brown rent-free? Runaway Slav. Apparently, alleged shooter was a Portuguese who worked with that Portuguese nuclear scientist. Yes, I just read that as well. Runaway Slav. All those who were at the shooting and interview said he shouted something. Enough people said the same that they were told by investigators to not say what was yelled. That's certainly quite suspect. Creston Light. I'm certain Kyle Kaczynski is gay. No need to interview. All right, fair enough. Thank you for that information. Anders 5645. It's a word. Contradictoring. There you go. And then Runaway Slav. Mossad investigates all non-Israeli incidents to confirm they were never involved. Checks out. All right, let's move on to our next topics. And guys, just in time for Christmas, apparently they found 1 million more Epstein files. Special for Christmas, while everyone's at home, other than the Jews, nobody else is out working. They found an entire 1 million more documents. And incredible how many documents the government can create on something that's just a hoax. I mean, the ability of the government to create so many documents on something that's not a thing. The government is really thorough when it wants to confirm that something's not a thing. And, you almost got to admire the amount of taxpayer dollars that go into our government so that they can just confirm, because sometimes they really want to be sure about things. Like when they were trying to tell us for 2 years that Donald Trump was a Russian asset, they spent 2 full years and I think over $100 million on Mueller. Couldn't remember anything when the thing was done. Suddenly he had Parkinson's disease. But sometimes I'd love to see how many millions of files do they have confirming that Bigfoot's not real. Are we finally, maybe Thomas Massey takes up that cause as well, finally gets the Bigfoot Information Act passed, and then we get 3 million documents about all of the ways that Bigfoot was not real. I mean, the amount of shenanigans that they're trying to pull to, firstly, I've said it 100 times. I'll say it 1,000 more times, maybe 6,000 more times after that. Maybe I'll do full episodes on keeping your retarded kids safe from FBI intelligence agents that want to blame crimes on them. And then on, if the government wanted to figure these things out, the things that they could do to figure these things out. And on this one, start with bringing every single person that worked with Epstein in front of Congress, the pilots, all the staff, the couple people that got immunity deals. Bring the people from JP Morgan in who signed no-fault clauses and were paying out the victims. Start muckraking all of the financial ties of this individual. And if there's one thing, I already talked about this, I'm part of the problem. But if there's one thing that, all right, let's start from here. Let's start here. ADD, everybody. Okay, it's pretty clear that the government does not want us to know what was actually happening with Epstein. I think everyone's best guess is that he's essentially some sort of an intelligence asset. Perhaps he was mostly involved in financial money laundering or, figuring out how to move money around for these intelligence agencies. And then he's just a bit of a creepy party guy on the side. Or maybe he's using sexual blackmail against rich and powerful men in order to move either his personal agenda forward or that of the intelligence agencies. Or maybe all the information comes out and we find out that us on Twitter have a very big imagination and it was all above board. That all seems rather unlikely. That last one seems rather unlikely. But the good leads are in some of the things that were already arrived in court and bringing some people in front of Congress to have to actually make public statements, such as why JP Morgan was looking the other way on all of their own internal safeguards for the way that they're supposed to process out money. That's just one. Let's talk to the pilot. Let's talk to the staff. Let's talk to those 4 people who were listed in the original prosecution as co-conspirators that couldn't be prosecuted. And then you could start digging into these people that are running Jeffrey Epstein's estate, which amongst the redactions, because they were apparently only supposed to redact things that were related to victims and everything else they were not allowed to redact. But there were a couple loopholes. I guess there's a loophole for ongoing investigations, which it's almost odd to me that they haven't said we're reopening up investigations so they don't have to release any information. And then they can also hold back information, and then they get 15 days for which they have to report why they held back the information, which does seem like could become a bit of a loop of keep publishing new reasons and holding things back. But then people were able to find some of the redacted information because government's stupid. They got bad henchmen. They got bad middlemen, and sometimes they just can't pull off their schemes. And so people are just highlighting, copying, and pasting the information, turning around, and the next thing you know, they're like, oh, look, here's some of the unredacted information. And the unredacted information, which, they're also going to have to answer for why it was redacted, is seemingly a lot of it's financial talk between Epstein and the lawyers and accountants, which would also seem like some good leads for uncovering what was actually going on there, and the government needs to answer for why they were redacting that information. But listen, apparently they found another 1 million files. They didn't even realize that they had them. They barely made the deadline of the last batch of files, and now they just need a little bit more time so that they can make the other 1 million files available. All right. Adam Austin, I agree 100% with what you said on POTP. That Vance was talking about Fuentes when he said not to do anything Charlie wouldn't. I had the same thought. I hope you're having a great holiday. Thank you, sir. Anytime someone wants to wish me a nice holiday and just say that they agree with what I'm ranting about, I appreciate you. Steven, welcome to the show. We are going to get into... Doing well. Merry Christmas, buddy. What's your excuse? I'm a Jew. I don't have to celebrate this holiday. Why are you available to podcast on Christmas?
Oh, man. Well, my family does halftime between Florida and California, kind of, and they're in Florida. I'm here in California, so it's kind of like, just Home Alone, but like a little bit better, more drugs, and it's great.
There you go. Did you set up traps for yourself to fall into, like paint cans coming down from stairs?
Dude, that's hilarious, but I'd probably quit after an hour, but I do like Rube Goldbergs. Did you in high school make like those Rube Goldbergs? Rube Goldberg.
Listen, we're friends now. I would have been friendly with you in high school, and I bet we would have done drugs together, and I would have said, there would have been like, I don't need to hear about this nerd type thing, but I think I know what you're talking about, which is like the marble comes down, hits that. But no, I never actually engaged in any of those activities. When
Correct.
we
Yeah.
did my version of lab class in high school was we would go up there, turn on all the Bunsen burners, and just light them on fire so that we could, and then we would, we would leave. That's what we would do because I was a very stupid kid. So I took zero interest in science, and the opportunities that were given to me at the wealthy private school I attended to have an education, I chose to just sit in my dorm room and read the newspaper.
Burn it down. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. All right, listen, Steven, I know you got some wonderful science topics for us, but let's get through a little bit more of what I had here,
I
and then
like
we'll
it.
delve into your stuff. But let's finish.
Science later, dude. I like my list more. It's more fun.
There you go. Let's just finish this Epstein topic. So
Oh,
apparently the latest is there's a million more documents that the DOJ just wasn't aware of, and so now they got to work on redacting these as well and putting them out. I know you've been a bigger fan of Trump than me, and you've had a little bit more of the take of he's the best option. Let's give this guy a chance. Still with an open mind. You're not like don't criticize. You're not one of the loyalists to that extent, but you have been a little bit had a more favorable attitude. I'm curious, what do you think? Do you think that there will be a conclusion to the Epstein storyline, and do you think Trump's walking away from this thing clean and scot-free?
I'm gonna tell you right now, I am bamboozled, right? Like you either get everything out and you take your licks and you move on, but right now we have the worst situation where there is stuff leaking out every couple months, and the stuff that leaks is all redacted, and then they find more stuff that leaks. So I like compartmentalizing when it comes to Trump. I think you need to. I do think he's the best option. I do like the tariffs. I like some aspects of the tariffs. I like trying new things in an experimental way and then seeing how it does for the country. And of course, there's some feedback between like the things that Trump does might take longer to feed back into the goodness of the country. And so that like time lag can also really look bad on him. But to answer your question directly, I've compartmentalized Epstein and just threw it out. It's clear that he was probably working with the government, right? And they just don't want to. They just don't want to give you like the dirty little secrets. There's no other explanation for me, but it does piss me off how they're how. I don't know, Rob. You answer me this: how many women do you think were actually abused in this scheme?
I don't know. I don't.
Right.
I legitimately like for as much as I speculate, I do try and speak to what I know. I think it's obvious that I think it's obvious that Epstein was working or seemingly in some sort of an intelligence role, which could also be. That doesn't necessarily mean the guy was trained by the CIA or Mossad. It could be that at some point, at what point, like for example, Whitey Bulger was an informant to the FBI. That doesn't make him an FBI agent, but it does mean at some point he's working with the FBI, right? And so on the same note, if the FBI is letting the guy get away with insane crimes that are bad for the nation because they're covering their own ass, it's, you know what I mean? You end up at the same point. So it
Right.
could be that like Epstein's pulling up high enough a level shit, and you got one guy at the CIA who's like, oh, I actually really think we can get this agenda done or this information by working with this guy. And then slowly there's enough of a relationship there that he basically becomes an asset. That doesn't necessarily mean that he was like literally trained and put in the field by Mossad or the CIA as much as at some point in time, they had a similar agenda and started working together, or he's informing them. But the extent, I'm actually a little annoyed by this, just because I like truth and I just like the information and I like to be able to comment on the information. The
Right.
extent by which there were children under the age of 18
Right.
involved in this still seems to not be crystal clear. And every once in a while, I'll go to Twitter Gronk and I'll be like, how many kids under the age 18? And it comes back with a couple names. And so I'm not here to say that there weren't kids involved, but like a lot of us are making repetitive, very damning statements of this is a pedophile ring. And it like, I don't know if that's as rampant as the extent by which all of us are saying it. That's not an endorsement of anything he's
Right.
doing. It's not an endorsement of a government cover-up. It's not an endorsement of the deep state. It's a wanting for clarity on the extent by which children under the age of 18 were actually involved with this.
Can
And
I
so
say something a little spicy?
Yes.
I think it's also important to contextualize young women in this thing, right? Like young models and whatnot. Like, what's the line between like abusing them? Of course, if they're under 18, that's not. But if an 18-year-old hot model, hey, you want to come on my jet, and then we end up fucking, like, is that abuse, or is that like just par for the course for every hot girl ever? Like. And listen. I'm just saying
I never lived life as a hot girl, so I guess I can't comment on how
I don't
often
blame
they end
you.
up on jets with wealthy billionaires.
I know sure as fuck that gross men don't and ugly girls don't, largely unless they're rich, and that's just the fact. So the games that we play, like the scoreboard for the women of these statures, Victoria's Secret models, and like their best friends, the games that they play, I think it's both hands here, right? Because at one aspect you're like, oh, these ghoulish men were just grabbing these women back to their goblin cave, and it's like,
well, I
so
guess I guess where the waters get muddied is if they were being recruited younger or if they were in fact younger. And once again, I'm not endorsing anything.
Right.
What I'm saying is for the amount of chatter of the word pedophile ring, I
Right.
think we need a little bit more evidence of child involvement. But with that said, every single time I look in Twitter Gronk, it does come back with allegations from 14-year-olds, which I think that's already not 17, 16. And any honest person's like, yeah, that's disgusting. But back to the kind of murky information, they put out this picture of Bill Gates. Now, we don't know that Bill Gates had this is not an endorsement of Bill Gates. I don't like Bill Gates. But the fact that Bill Gates is not even touching this lady, there's no thing in the document that says he had sex with this lady. And this lady also doesn't appear to be under the age of, I'm going to say 24.
And she's an assistant, bro. She's dressed like someone that's working. She's dressed like a 40-hour
And then
work week
you even
woman.
had there were a couple creepy pictures of Epstein himself. Once again, there's another picture of blacked out lady, but like, is that a child? That doesn't look like a child's body. Okay. Then you had a couple disturbing photos in DOJ's Epstein's document drop shows shirtless pedophile with tiny tot. Now, there were pictures. I don't know if you remember this. There was actually a creepy one of Hunter Biden when he was out with his niece, and they were both like, I think, naked at a beach or something, which is a little bit weird to be doing with a relative. I believe I could be dead wrong. That might have been a girlfriend in that video. The point I'm trying to make here is, all right. Obviously, we're all sickened by the idea of pedophile around children. There's I don't know if Epstein has nieces, nephews, cousins, or whatever. I don't know that was, sometimes even the biggest of sociopaths are really nice to their pets or really nice to their family. And so even pictures of him with children, unless I don't want to see any graphics acts with kids. I have no interest in seeing those images. If those images exist, don't put them out. But without the context of, oh, here's a picture of him with an allegation, and this is believed to be even redacted names victims who was this age, just seeing a picture of a dude with a child, even a child on his lap, that could be he's hanging out with his niece or nephew. Now, I don't know if he has niece or nephew. I have no idea. Yeah.
But even if he doesn't, Rob, it's really common. Again, like the scoreboard that attractive young ladies live by. If they have a kid, bringing their kid to some mansion where they're kind of, having fun with the guy, but their kid gets really well taken care of. That's a point on a hot lady's scoreboard.
All right, now we've got
yeah.
Yes. All right, we've got
these could just be the kids of the hot girls that he's.
Yeah, but that would be a problem because then they're not his kids, and I guess it's just the context of if
they're in the
he's
same room, what is he doing with them? Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
It's all contextless, so it's all trash.
This is at Leon's Pat saying in the new files there are pics and videos of kids younger than school age. and also commenting that that's a 5-year-old. At Lena's Spat 605, shoot me an email.
Yeah.
No graphic images. If there's a news article or anyone listening to the show, if you have or have read direct evidence of under 18-year-old information that's come out in the new files, I will gladly cover it on the next show. I'm not saying the storyline's not true. What I'm saying is, for the extent that we're all just calling this a pedophile ring, I would like to see more of the direct evidence of the under 18s. Is that unfair, Stephen? I don't think I'm not defending this, and I'm saying that the government needs to answer for what happened, and we have a deep state problem, we have an intelligence agency problem, and all of this checks out that you've got this guy doing shady shit. I'm just saying I would like more evidence of that particular detail.
Yeah,
Steven.
and a couple things for me. One is that, kids under 10 or 8, that's kind of a different thing, right? And this is really, call me gross or whatever, but mature 15, 16, 17-year-olds is kind of one thing, and then 7, 6, 5-year-olds is a different thing. Both are terrible, both are tragic, both are illegal, but there is a difference there.
It's in disgusting economic terms, it's almost like a marginal utility, and that every year that you go down from 18 is just it's like it's leaps and bounds worse. So
yeah, and it's not it's worse for everyone. It's not as traditionally what we view as sexy or attractive, right? Like, if traditionally throughout human history, like, younger women were more attractive, but that doesn't count 10-year-olds throughout all of human history.
I like this from Runaway Slav. Now we're just splitting prepubescent hairs.
Yeah,
right.
I think because that's all we have to do now. It's
Okay, so this was one of the other crazy ones. I'll just read it because I don't remember what was here. But at one point, redacted witness asked him for ID to girl. The note said he wanted to make sure under 18 because he wasn't believing them because redacted messed up by bringing more older girls. The notes contains the witness description of sexual encounters like Epstein making crazy noises and touching victims roughly. The document contains photographs of girls described in the notes from 14 to 17-year-olds around town in bikinis on the beach. The note references New York locations, the 41st Street apartment in Manhattan, locations in Rochester. The identity of witness is not clear. The notes jibe with Epstein's known interest in Brazilian children. So there were a couple really crazy claims made. One of them was of a dead girl, a dead 14-year-old that I believe Donald Trump is alleged to have had sex with. But there's
for one, what's the age of consent in Brazil? It's probably like 14.
Yeah, but I think even by... All right, let me just finish my thought, and then I'll address what you're saying. Okay. Firstly, I don't know that was happening in Brazil. Also, I don't know that it should be legal to... I think I seem to be repeating back. If you've got maybe headphones that you could throw in, or just throw yourself on mute while I'm ranting. There's a little button on the bottom left corner. You can just press mute on the mic. If you press the mic, it will mute. Okay. Firstly is... all of these things could be true, but like unknown witnesses and FBI files, it lacks enough context to go like that's definitely true. And then speaking to your traveling to other countries that don't have the same morality as us, I don't know. I'd almost be okay with like having a law against that. It seems like some activities should not be done at all. Like if there was, I don't know, if there was an area of this country, of the world where you could just legally murder someone, I mean, we can all agree you certainly couldn't traffic a person there so that you can murder them or arrange for that person to be brought there so that you can legally murder them. But let's just say there was a town out in the desert that was reserved so that you could legally murder anyone you wanted. I think if you went there, you shouldn't necessarily be allowed to just come back to the United States of America and live as a citizen.
Yeah,
Steven.
but those are...
Yeah.
But those are questions not really for us, right? Those are for politicians, and I agree with you. I think but we don't really have a one world law.
I'm just saying, to me, hey, I went to Brazil and I engaged with this with a person from Brazil. I don't think that makes it certainly morally any better. And if that's not a crime, I mean, I'd be open for the argument against, like, hey, that didn't take place here. But to me, I don't know. That's no different than going somewhere to murder someone and being like, yeah, well, I left the country for it.
But in Alabama, it's what, 16, right? Mississippi, the age of consent, and then in California, it's 18, right? So it's interesting.
Yeah, well, people in Alabama are backwards. What can I say? All right.
Dude, yeah, I know. I agree.
Okay. And then just the last thing on this topic, but Massey was basically going after the DOJ for what they were redacted. They were even saying that they might go after Pam Bondi. The law was written as no record should be withheld, delayed, or redacted on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity, including to any government official, public figure, or foreign dignitary, basically saying all the information, unless it's to protect a victim, has to be put out. And then this was reported by Fox News that the Fox News Digital has learned that the same redaction standards were applied to politically exposed individuals and government officials. And then the argument, and excuse me if I don't have this 100% correct, but because it's just bullshit. You know what I mean? Sometimes like wrapping your head around what someone said that was just to say bullshit to try and understand. They weren't. They were just trying to come up with something, but they were saying that basically Congress has to. They're using like almost the constitutional thing where it's like there's no authority unless it's clearly written by the law. And so pre-existing law allows government to basically make these style redactions. And since the new law didn't specifically say that they couldn't, they were allowed to use the pre-existing law standard of making redactions for reputational harm or for exposed. But, Thomas Massey was obviously being like, bullshit. We clearly said absolutely no redactions. So that's in our law. We'll see how that plays out. Listen, Pam Bondi, I don't like her. Take her down. Get a new person in there.
Yep.
And, the entire Donald Trump inner administration could go as far as I'm concerned. He can go too. I'm not as much of a fan as you are.
Well, it's a vacuum, right? Like I like the enemy I know, right? Or at least
There you go. All right, I will come back to the other topics I had planned, but before we do, I know, Steven, you had a bunch of things on your mind. You text me these long rants of health issues that I should be aware of. Before we do, let me just plug another sponsor, Sheath.com. I just got to hang out with Bobby the Bank. He came out from my Denver, Colorado show. Always nice to see that guy in the flesh. Been a long-term supporter of the Run Your Mouth podcast. If someone in your family decided to hook you up with some Christmas money because they didn't know what to buy you as a gift, I can't recommend more going out and buying yourself a pair of Sheath underwear. Let me tell you, I'm wearing right now. I got the I look sexy as shit, buddy. I don't know if I can get it up there.
Move
but
that camera down.
Yeah. I got the orange ones on, and listen, I swear by these. My legs don't chafe. I got big fat thighs from doing squats and eating donuts, and keeps everything cool, calm, and collected. All right, Steven, let me pull this down. The floor is yours. What did you want to get up and into today?
Oh man, well, first I remember last time I was on, you brought up the phenomenon of people vomiting after smoking marijuana.
Yes.
More so, yeah. And so I was actually doing some thinking, and I think I got to the bottom of it.
All right, you cracked the case of people vomiting from smoking weed.
100%. And so more people are smoking and vaping weed, but the traditional way or the ways that people do it, it kind of reminds them of drinking. So people are basically smoking marijuana like they're sipping a Slurpee. And what happens is when you get the smoke or the weed vapor in your stomach, it's going to aggregate your stomach lining and make you want to vomit, particularly with the... Yeah.
I remember in high school, it was really funny. We used to call it ghost hits or something, or dragon's breath. I don't remember the name.
When you burp up weed?
Yeah, we had this big fat friend, and like 10 minutes, big fat beef ball, right?
Sure.
And I'm not even going to tell you guys the nicknames we had for him because we had some nasty nicknames. But he was a pal, and sometimes we'd be smoking weed, and like 10 minutes later, he would burp up the giant, and we would always like poke him and just be like, "Where? Yeah, got any more in there? Like, where were you even storing that?" And it was hilarious every time. We'd fall on the floor laughing when your big fat friend 10 minutes after you were done smoking weed literally just burps up like a cloud of smoke like he took a bong rip, and you're just like, how was that just in you for the last 10 minutes? So you're saying that kids who were, and I've never seen that since high school. So I don't know how, you know what I mean? I don't know what was going on there or how he even survived having a cloud of weed in his stomach for 10,
Really?
15
Yeah.
minutes. But you're saying this is happening to other individuals and they're ending up with a vomit fit.
Especially with the vapes, they actually do look like a straw now, and the kind of the way that you hit them can kind of confuse people, like you're slurping in. And so yeah, that's definitely it. And part of my evidence is we know people that take 10, 100 milligrams of edibles, but their stomach doesn't get sick, and that's way more marijuana, particularly the active ingredients in their stomach. So we know it's not those ingredients. It's definitely something else.
So you're saying kids out there, if you're smoking weed, make sure to actually smoke the weed. You know, I have that problem. There you go. You know what? You should teach a yoga breath class for kids who are
Yeah,
not smoking marijuana properly.
you're right.
I have that problem with cigars. I love cigars, but I just inhale them and smoke them like weed. And then I always
Me
wake up
too.
the next day thinking I have strep throat, which is why if I ever get my hands on cigars, I like to just chew on them, which is a good time. All right, fine. First case solved. What else
So
did you have, Mr. Steven?
yeah. So let's see where we go. So this is important to touch on. There's a peer-reviewed study that did come out that showed that the myocarditis and the negative effects of the vaccine, and this is something I got wrong, were not due to the spike protein of COVID. The negative effects and the myocarditis caused by the COVID preventative therapy or vaccine is actually a your own body's immune response to the mRNA getting injected in your body at a high concentration. So, in other words, your body recognizes the mRNA shot that's encapsulated, much like a virus, with foreign mRNA, just like a virus. And so your body then uh, gears up an inflammatory response, so much so that that actually hurts some people's hearts.
So the inflammatory response by the body reacting to the mRNA was causing myocarditis.
Right, and not the actual spike protein that would get produced days after, which is kind of what I thought, because the spike protein actually is bad for, it is cytotoxic. But it was really interesting that this actually undermines the mRNA technology in terms of using it as a vaccine or a widely distributed mechanism. If you're suffering from a specific gene-based disease, you could get mRNA injected in you, and it would work really well. But that's because you need to add something to yourself. As
A
far as
hundred,
health,
a
yeah.
hundred years in the future, do you think they'll actually figure out the mRNA technology that it's something that we use, or do you think like there's something fundamentally about it that just doesn't work?
I think it's the delivery mechanism because right now we already have gene therapy. So there are specific diseases like certain types of like multiple sclerosis or muscular dystrophy that has one gene missing in your muscle cells. And so doctors will actually engineer a virus, give it to you, and this virus will go into your neurons and then give you that gene to express. So this is already happening. It's really nuts. And
Well, I
so
have
the
taller kids with bigger penises.
the bigger penises, that's more of a vibe thing. So like good luck with that, dude. But you can definitely the copies of genes, so you would have to hit your kids when they're still in the womb, because ideally you would then do this. But the way this will work in the future is before you're genetically engineering any baby, you're just going to select for the baby ahead of time, right? It's going to be much less putting together a puzzle piece and much more like, okay, we have 1,000 or 10,000 possible embryos in a dish here. Which one of these has the best bet? Because when you start putting together stuff like a puzzle piece, it's just not going to work. And
You mean so
and
like
for
they'll
yeah.
study all the sperm and make sure that the good one is actually the one that because sometimes like the bad sperm is actually a little slower, took its time, wanted to think about things, got a little bit nervous about where he was traveling, and you're like that
Yeah,
was the smart sperm, and
it
then the
went the wrong
fast
way.
sperm, yeah, the fast sperm was actually the dumbass who had no concerns and just sprinted a little bit too quickly for the last stretch.
It is really crazy because it is kind of like the fastest swimmer wins, and usually that's correlated to good genes. But as a scientist in the lab where you're literally getting single cell sequencing, this sperm has an extra gene for muscle growth. So this one will be better at
So you're
sports.
saying God had a bad system for figuring out how women get pregnated because we shouldn't be going off the fastest sperm. We should be going off the best sperm.
This is actually a really
Or
big.
or you're saying that women are creating the problem here because they just like the fastest, and what they needed was like having an ovary that would have a conversation, or like some like other tricks of a test they
Right.
had to pass, which is more true to actual life.
Like a math test or something. Yeah, right. But this actually gets into something really crazy, and that is the future of human evolution. Because the more that we do this, the less that we have those slow sperm hitting the egg. And a lot of ways, random sperm hitting the egg is important because evolution is one part natural selection. So literally, the taller neck will eat the trees and pass on. Natural selection is
Well,
not
luckily,
random.
we'll still have poor people who probably won't be able to afford these technologies, and so we'll still get some roulette rule of who's procreating.
That's but then we might get a little bit more of an idiocracy, but you're right. So we're going to have divergence where rich people are going to select. So instead of having random kids with random mutations that might be better at one thing or better at another, better at math, maybe more autistic but not very social, but then maybe that guy cures fucking cancer. That's something that we might lose by selecting for just really fucking strong big dick kids, right? And so that is going to focus human evolution that's traditionally been random, right? If there's an ice age, we're going to select for kids that are good in the cold. But if it starts warming up, then those kids that were really good in the cold are going to die out and other
It's
genes
once
are going to
again a
flourish.
free rider problem that if
Right.
everyone wants like smart, tall, good
Right.
looking, big dicked, and all of that stuff, then they keep selecting for it. And that's bad because what we need is a couple people to have their
Autism.
wheelchair kids and their autism to have
Stephen Hawking.
the one Einstein or Stephen Hawking that you would otherwise have corrected for. Interesting.
It's really crazy, yeah, and that is something that's worth talking about. That's fun, dude. That's like graduate level bioethics stuff, and it really goes
Well,
to what you were talking
I'll
about.
give you the other side of this argument, which is I am somewhat of the belief, not completely married to this. Talked about this recently on an episode of Part of the Problem. I'll give the whole thing. I'll give the
Yeah,
whole thing, Stephen. I'll keep it real brief. There's a
sure.
possibility, like the story of the Tower of Babel, where people want to challenge God, and so they're building the high tower, and God changes the algorithm of life, and so they can no longer communicate with each other. That there's some sort of a higher power that actually keeps the universe in check, and there's some rules to the way that this universe is supposed to operate as dictated by a higher power who still engages with this universe and doesn't want changes to the algorithm, such as us becoming cyborgs or genetically mutating ourselves and advancing ourselves to a point where perhaps modern humans are going to be looked at as almost a lower or a secondary species, right? The other possibility, though, is that human beings are basically on the earth to cede it to robots and AI, which could also not be true. It could be that they're just tools, and just the fact that we interact with them where a wrench doesn't talk to me, and I can have a conversation with Gronk that I almost in my head anthropomorphize it and create it to be more of like a sentient human being than it actually is. But I'm just saying there's a possibility that we either go the way of, creating robots that are going to replace us, or we use a little bit of science to merge ourselves with science to stay ahead of the robots and basically be next generation humans.
Those both don't sound very good.
Yeah, I don't know why. Well, like, who cares? Maybe like the next generation of humans are just like floating around, telekinesis, much smarter than us, can like, you know what I'm saying? Like have all the X-Men
I
features
I
rolled
do,
into one
but
person.
I've been thinking, Rob, and you guys are jump in the comments. I want to hear
By the
what you
way,
guys
if this
have
is
to
getting
say.
too out there, it's because Steven's having a lonely Christmas drug day. And so we're going down the rabbit hole of what he's thinking about.
Dude,
Anyways,
100%. And so, no, I do want to hear what you guys want to say. Jump in the comments. I'm beginning to think we did land on the moon in the 1960s. And
okay.
I, and the reason for this is I thought it strained credulity that we would lose information and balls as generations passed. But I'm starting to see this now, I think, with biology and other aspects of human health and disease, where we're just kind of losing the critical thinking, the personal responsibility, the balls, and the intellectual stimulation that requires to address some of these issues, right? And instead, we always appeal to authority. And that I don't think that happened a lot in the 50s and the 40s. Like there's like we're gonna do this, we're gonna find out how to do this, and we're gonna experiment and get it done. There wasn't a lot of like waiting around and looking at what people were telling. So I actually do think that we've lost, whether it's balls or intellectualism or even technology. I think that's absolutely happening. And whether it's a systemic thing, our kids are getting dumber down every generation. And it is a little scary. Yeah.
All right, could be. All right, Steven, I know you're on the clock. You do have some family plans or something after this. What else? What else was on your mind? And if not, we can go back to my other topics. But I think you had a couple other things.
Yeah, dude, I did. I think it's really worth talking about. I heard on an actual reputable reporter, one of the people that know what they're talking about on CNBC was saying that homeowners in Florida are starting to hedge their insurance with prediction markets on like Robinhood.
All right, this is interesting. So,
Yeah.
what's the play? How do I do
So
this?
the play would be that insurance for fire here in Southern California, as well as hurricane insurance in Florida, has just stopped providing the
Oh, so
opportunity.
you basically bet on a fire happening, which has
Correct,
long like
because there's no there right now there is no insurance for some families. So
right.
and insurance is a crock of shit, and part of that is you guys can look into that. But so what they'll
That's
do
actually a
is
smarter way to do insurance.
it is because the money's more liquid, right? So what happens is, let's say there's 20 to 1 odds that Category 5 is going to hit Naples, Florida, and your house is $100,000 house. What you could do is just put $5,000 on that
And
bet.
now I'm fully insured.
And now you're fully insured, and
That's essentially just a futures contract on whether or not there's a hurricane or a devastating fire in your area. That's a smarter way to do insurance.
and there's no calculations involved, there's no calls. It's literally liquid money that shows up in your account if a hurricane hits, or they take it away from you if it doesn't.
You can
You
almost
don't
do health insurance that way.
I knew you would like this.
Yeah, because you could say like odds of like me getting a cancer diagnosis at 25, or me needing to spend $1 million on a health payout this year, and you could make that. You could literally just do the actuarial
You'd have
math.
to group it. It's a little bit harder because here it's basically people are taking the opposite and about a hurricane hitting, so that you have to have someone on the other side of the trade too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess. Yeah, I guess someone could just take the bet against you. And
Right.
if they wanted to take enough of those bets against different people, you know what I mean? And then
It would have to be pooled, so it wouldn't be individual. I don't want to bet that Rob's gonna get cancer.
no, but I'm
but
saying
it'd
you should
pooled.
you should be allowed to bet on yourself, and
Yeah.
then basically come to the same way of having insurance.
Or the pool that you involve in. Someone in pool A356 will get cancer, and the pools
Right.
of 100 people. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh wow, that's actually
That's actually pretty smart.
yeah, that is pretty smart. All right, I like that. What else you
Yeah.
got for us? These
Yeah,
are all
that was
topics
cool.
I haven't seen or come across.
Um, uh, yeah, you kind of already covered the Candace stuff. I just think like put that in the context of infighting within the Republican Party and like what is the Republican Party. And I kind of mentioned this, like you have some people pearl clutching that marijuana got rescheduled. It's like, guys, just save it. And
Well,
then they're very desperate. So I don't know what's going to happen to the Republican Party. And
This
I don't
is
think
right on
TPUSA
topic.
is good, or
This is
it
right
is
on.
as good.
This is
Yeah.
right on topic, but I actually think Dave is right about this one.
Okay.
I don't know why I said it like that. Dave is always right.
Yeah, no,
Actually, I'm not
he's a
surprised
very
that Dave is
thoughtful
right.
individual.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not surprised. But
he's not dumb.
let me rephrase that. Dave once again has this one right, which I think there's a lot of people in the Republican Party who I don't think love the tariffs. I think there's a lot of people that also don't like that Donald Trump is not ramping down wars. I think there's some people that don't love that there isn't more deportations. I think by and large, just Donald Trump made a lot of really big promises, which is what you got to do when you're campaigning. And a lot of the things haven't come to fruition yet. But I think one of the biggest ones is that a lot of people really don't like that America is sponsoring what is going on over in Israel. And I think that the biggest divergence, if you look at it, is Republican commentators who are not 100% on board. I wouldn't even call them anti-Israel, just not 100% on board with what Israel's doing in Gaza. And a little bit like the COVID storyline, there's a call for compliance and zero criticism and not being allowed to investigate or ask questions. And people are trying to reframe it as other issues that have grown the divergence or created. But I think the biggest one is you've got prominent Republican voices who are no longer 100%, hey, Israel's our number one ally. And when you've got the Republican Party and Trump and everyone else still running with no, they are our number one ally and this is a good investment and you can't ask any questions and they can't explain it to us, I think that's where you get the biggest split of like, whoa, I thought we're the drain the swamp people. I thought we're going to represent and care about actual Americans. And if you're telling me that this thing that I don't understand is actually extremely important and I'm not even allowed to ask it, it starts to be like, no, I think you're representing private interests more than average American. And so I think all of it is a way to try and distract from what the actual divide is over, which I think that one's probably the biggest. Listen, in my world, I wish it was over interest rates, okay? I wish that the entire Republican Party was like, oh my God, Donald Trump, you're going to spend more money. You're going to try and you're saying that you'll only hire someone who's going to lower the interest rates. That I wish that was the divergence in the Republican Party.
Right.
I wish that there were Republicans that were so financially savvy that they understood that Donald Trump's financial schemes are not good for this country, and the divergence was between actually fiscally conservatives and conservatives that are actually democratic socialist populists who have taken over the Republican Party.
They've never really been fiscally conservative though, but yeah.
What was that?
They always pass budgets and shit. They're never really fiscally conservative. And it's all these old hands holding on. It's such, we need 10, 20 years and they'll all die of natural causes. And then I'm interested to see what happens. But then that's why you're bringing up what you're bringing up, because we're really talking about the next generation.
All right. So this was a great story. This was the ADL accuses Megyn Kelly of using anti-Semitic trope against Ben Shapiro and victim blaming Barry Weiss. Now, I want to read this one paragraph from this article because it really stood out to me. All right. Calling Ben Shapiro Israel first invokes the age-old anti-Semitic dual loyalty trope that has fueled persecution and hatred amongst Jews for centuries, the organization added. ADL has documented time and time again how this kind of rhetoric from public figures helps normalize anti-Semitic and may even endanger Jewish communities and must stop now. So now I want to take a second with this. Is that the ADL admitting that if somebody is actually Israel first, that's a bad thing? Because if you don't think that it's a bad thing to be Israel first, claiming that you are Israel first should just be a true statement about your belief. And so is this the ADL actually admitting that if a Jewish person was Israel first and that they were more concerned with Israel than they were with this country, that's a negative thing? And then in which case, if somebody's calling out someone for being Israel first and they are Israel first, the ADL should be condemning that individual for validating anti-Semitic tropes amongst Jewish people. Steven wants to reread it. He wants to make sure that I didn't spin it too negatively.
No, I actually am. It's just something like the ADL could have some like hard punches, right? But they see everything as a nail. It undermines everything they do, and like I was getting pretty aggravated with all like kind of the anti-Jewish sentiment, if you will, but also like the physical acts that I know were happening, and like a little bit. I watch Fox News too, so you can talk shit on me too, right? But it's hard to keep that fervor of defense when there's just when the ADL is just throwing around bombs like this and
or labeling. I know it wasn't the ADL, but I think someone gave Tucker Carlson the Anti-Semite of the Year award. And so, And so you're saying even for me, who has not criticized what's been going on in Israel and Gaza in the same way and have been trying to defend Jews, when people walk in with this level of lunacy, it makes me a non-Jew. I'm talking on your behalf. A non-Jew who's trying to defend this, sees a risk of anti-Semitism, would like to support Israel more. It makes me have to walk away from this cause because you guys are being so ridiculous. I can't be affiliated with it.
Right. And there's some really good points you could make, but they don't stop.
All right, let's cover two more topics, and then I will let you go. The first is Europe to lend $150 billion to Ukraine without touching Russian funds. So this was a big story that essentially, guys, go write this down. You can clip it. You can send it to me in the future. I was wrong. and that I was saying Donald Trump needs to just walk away from Ukraine and Russia. And I think he basically has. I think there's only about $100 million of U.S. funds going there over the last 3 months. That's a big fall off from the 100 billion or plus that I think Biden had put in or was being put in previously. So I was saying Donald Trump needs to just walk away from this. And if there was no longer American funds, then, they would have to actually contend with reality. And I believe that I was wrong, and that from my most recent understanding, I don't believe that Donald Trump is making new money available. He's essentially selling military equipment if the Europeans are willing to purchase it. And so Europe has been trying to figure out how they can keep this thing going on. I guess the cost is about $100 billion annually, or maybe that's every 6 months. I'd have to actually go check on that, but I'm going to go with $100 billion annually. And so they have a lot of money that Russia had been keeping in Western institutions, and so they were trying to figure out, basically they wanted to just steal that money so that they could use that to fund the war. Now, I think a lot of people were suggesting that would be a loss over time because you're going to fracture the monetary systems more and incentivize other countries basically not to be having deposits in Western institutions if it could just be stolen. My guess is even the fact that they flirted with this or that Russia hasn't had access to these funds over the last couple of years probably doesn't even help, and probably does even push it forward with why am I leaving money at Western banks if they're going to try and pressure me in these ways. But the latest is that Europe is coming up with the funds to essentially keep the Ukraine war going for another year. As to what the point of that is, or why they can't just admit defeat and move on, or how they think that there's a pathway to victory without escalating to nuclear war. It's the same lunacy we've seen for a couple of years, but I guess at least it's Europe doing the stupidity and not us.
It might be a distraction from their own anemic economies, maybe, and their own political turmoil. I don't know, though.
Could be. All right, and then last topic for today, which is on Venezuela. But I thought that this was actually, no, we'll do two more real quick.
Yeah,
House kills
good.
bill on blocking war with Venezuela. And this one's fascinating. Presidents are not supposed to be allowed to even go to war without congressional approval, because Congress is supposed to be the ones that declare war. Obviously, Donald Trump's not the first president to ignore that that's the way that war is supposed to exist. And so in this case, Congress basically had a bill to reconfirm the authority of Congress. This bill shouldn't exist. I didn't see anyone going, hey, this bill's redundant because we have this authority anyways, and it's a bad look for us to be passing a bill of essentially asserting the authority that we have. But essentially, the bill comes before Congress saying that there can't be a war with Venezuela unless Congress approves it, and Congress voted it down. If anything, that gives I would almost lawyer it the other way if I was Donald Trump and go, look, they gave me the authority by voting down this bill. Not that not that Donald Trump cares, or that actually is a real argument. But I thought it was quite shocking that Congress so doesn't want to, I guess, oppose Donald Trump or his interests, and they're so weak, and they just want to stay out of some things, that they won't even do the job of what they're supposed to do, or in this case, even just assert, the power that they're supposed to have. I thought that this one was kind of shocking.
Yeah, and maybe I would like to have someone that's one of these staff assistants, because I actually met up with a high school buddy a couple years ago who did like 5 years and was currently working for Bernie Sanders as like a close assistant. And he kind of let me in on some inside information. A lot of these congressmen and women, they vote on stuff that their assistants give them, right? Like it's their tight circle of younger assistants that do all the work. They translate everything. And then they kind of funnel it up to the congressman or woman that seems to be kind of like an airhead. And it's just a terrible way to run a government. I have no idea what they're doing. And it's hard to have trouble with what Trump's doing when these people are there for one reason. It's to like check and balance on the prez, and they don't do it.
All right, last one, silly one, close out the episode. Actually, I love this, and we'll come back. We'll make this the last one. But I absolutely loved the Donald Trump new plaques over at the White House. I'm sure you saw this storyline where, I mean, this is a Mad Magazine bit of here's the actual president descriptions we'd like to see. And the fact that this is in the White House with the bronze things. I mean, this is not what's actually written, but like Bill Clinton, famous for having sex with this secretary and riding good economic times with the asset bubble that he created. All right. Venezuela, obviously they're pitching this war. They're pitching over this ridiculous drug stuff. It's not coming from Venezuela, and it's not a reason to be going to war. But you've got Trump designates fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. I thought that this was just kind of funny because fentanyl's still used in hospitals. Now you could say, okay, so it's a legal fentanyl, which is a weapons of mass destruction, but like a warhead is a warhead. Like, this is my autism, right? You could say, like, this would be like labeling nuclear power a weapon of mass destruction. It's not. It's once you put it into the weapon form that it's now a weapon of mass destruction. Fentanyl, while it still exists, while it still exists for medicinal purposes, and you could be in you're telling me that a hospital is giving you a weapon of, oh, well, that's the legal fentanyl. We're only saying the illegal fentanyl. And it's like, no, that's not the way the word weapon of mass destruction is used. Even if the government owns a legal warhead, it's a weapon of mass destruction. And so you kind of can't have a dual usage of a weapon of mass destruction. It is a classification of what the thing is. And so as long as fentanyl still exists for a medicinal purpose and is still used in hospitals today, I mean, this classification is just more doubling down on the goofiness of the way they're trying to pitch this war.
I think it's actually a really dangerous slippery slope too, because of what isn't a weapon of mass destruction. Is it just something that kills a lot of Americans? Because that seems to be it, right? And then, of course, it's a drug, so people are choosing to do it. And the argument that like people are doing something else and it's laced with it, they're still choosing to do something illegal. So yeah, it's a ridiculous argument, really scary. It's pretty crazy.
We've got Black Eye. The problem is a very small quantity can cause a mass casualty. Yes, I know. That doesn't actually take on what I'm saying of you can't label it a weapon of mass destruction while it still is used medicinally. Like, I guess if someone were to, put it this way, if someone were to create a fentanyl tube that was used because it was on a timer and it got released in the air and would kill everyone in the room, well, now you have something that I could identify as a weapon of mass destruction because it's a weaponized item that is only being used for
and fentanyl needs to be
purposes.
Ingested. It can't go through your skin. So,
but again, I think weren't there like some crazy stories about those were debunked. I think it can be inhaled though, can it?
Yeah, it could, sure. But
okay. Someone said they gave it to me in the ER. It was very needed. Fair enough. All right, last story for today. And then everyone, Merry Christmas. I hope if you didn't get gifts, you go buy yourself some gifts, go eat some holiday cookies, or have a Stephen Day and just be alone and do more drugs in your apartment. That's fine too. We don't judge over here. Democratic Party won't release 2024 election review, and it's because they did it, and it just came back. Kamala Harris stunk. They promised that they were going to release the review of what went wrong in the election, and then they just realized it was so embarrassing to Kamala Harris and to the party and in pitching new donors that they were just like, you know what? I think we all know what happened, and there's no reason to put this out.
Yeah, I mean, the Republicans and Donald Trump are really bad, but, as long as we have someone that's worse, that's the way it's going to be,
There you go. All right, that is our episode. Steven, before I let you go, I'll let you plug first. What do you got to plug? Where can people find you? If people want to connect with you, can they still get the creatine gummies? Can they still get the long shots? What's the latest racket? What are you working on?
Yeah, I mean, you can still check out cellshotnutrition.com for our long shots. We pretty much sold out of everything else. Right now, working on a second preprint to the peer-reviewed paper. Check it out on Research Square.
Turn your dick blue.
That's the next one. Search BPC 157 binding SH3 domains. Check it out. Thank you, guys.
There you go. And then if you guys are around the Jersey area on New Year's, come hang out. I'm opening up for Sam Tripoli at the Comedy Dojo. And if you haven't already, please go subscribe to the Robbie the Fire channel. If you're a longtime listener of the Run Your Mouth podcast channel, it will not be, new episodes are not going up there anymore in 2025. So if you guys like watching the content on YouTube, please go over there. Or if you're a person who only listens to the show or is only on Twitter or only on Spotify, guys, I am a stand-up comedy. That's the main thing. I'm putting up clips over there, and I just put out first episode of Porching. I think it's real funny, and second episode coming out, worked real hard on it, so I would appreciate it if you guys gave it a watch. Hopefully you like it, and even if you don't, I will take the fact that you clicked on it, and that, hopefully it gets some real numbers, and I don't have to kill myself.
And that's the RYM Spotify?
No, I'm saying some people, listen on just Spotify, and they
see.
don't check out the YouTube content.
Gotcha.
And the YouTube content has a lot of stand-up stuff. So if you guys like the podcast, I think you'd like my stand-up. I think that's more of what I do. And so go give it a click. Go give it a follow. Check it on out. All right, that's it. Hey, Steven, Merry Christmas, buddy.
You too, man. This was fun. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. All right, that is our show.